The crimson sands of Keth 7 stretched endlessly beneath twin purple suns, their harsh light casting jagged shadows across the alien landscape. Captain Elena Vasquez pressed herself against the crystalline outcrop, her breathing shallow as she watched the Zephyrian hunting party sweep across the valley below. Their sleek, predatory forms moved with deadly grace, their silver carapaces gleaming like liquid metal in the dying light. She counted 12 of them, 12 of the galaxy's most feared apex predators, each one standing nearly 8 feet tall with razor-sharp claws that could slice through titanium like paper. The Zephyrians had been hunting humans for sport across the Outer Rim colonies for months now, and Elena had the misfortune of being their latest prey. Her ship, the Aurora's Edge, lay in smoking ruins 3 kilometers behind her. The Zephyrian vessel had caught her completely off guard while she was running a routine supply mission to the mining colony on Keth 7. The bastards had used some kind of electromagnetic pulse weapon that fried her engines and sent her crashing into the desert. By some miracle, she'd survived the impact, but her crew hadn't been so lucky. Now she was alone, stranded on this god-forsaken rock, with nothing but her sidearm, a half-empty water canister, and her wits. The hunting party had been tracking her for hours, playing with her like a cat toys with a mouse. They could have killed her a dozen times over, but that wasn't their way. The Zephyrians believed that prey was only worth taking if it provided a proper challenge. If it ran and fought and struggled until the very end. Elena wiped the sweat from her brow and checked her weapons charge. 12 shots left. Against 12 Zephyrians. The math wasn't in her favor. But she'd faced worse odds before. During the Centauri uprising, she'd held off an entire battalion of separatist forces with nothing but a broken rifle and sheer determination. Of course, those had been humans. These were something else entirely. A low, chittering sound echoed across the rocks, the Zephyrian equivalent of laughter. They knew where she was. They were just taking their time, savoring the hunt. Elena could see their leader now, a massive specimen with intricate scarring across his chitinous plates. According to the intelligence reports she'd read, those scars were marks of honor, each one representing a successful hunt. This one had more scars than she could count. The creature's voice carried easily across the distance, speaking in accented but perfect Terran standard. Human female. Why do you delay the inevitable? Your kind is known for their creativity in desperate situations. Surely you can provide us with better sport than this cowering behind rocks? Elena's jaw clenched. The arrogant bastard was taunting her, trying to provoke her into making a mistake. She'd heard stories about Zephyrian hunts. They liked their prey to run, to panic, to make wild, desperate attempts at escape. It made the kill more satisfying for them. But Elena Vasquez had never been one to give her enemies what they wanted. She closed her eyes and centered herself, drawing on the meditation techniques she'd learned during her special forces training. Fear was just another enemy to be defeated, and panic was a luxury she couldn't afford. When she opened her eyes again, her mind was crystal clear. The Zephyrian hunting party had spread out, forming a wide semicircle that was slowly closing in on her position. They moved with the coordinated precision of pack hunters, each one covering the other's blind spots. Their leader continued his psychological warfare, his voice dripping with predatory anticipation. Come now, human. Show us why your species thinks it deserves to walk among the stars. Run for us. Fight for us. Give us a hunt worthy of song. Elena checked her equipment one more time. Her combat knife was still secure in its sheath. Her emergency beacon was dead, fried in the crash along with everything else electronic. Her water supply would last maybe another day. But that was academic now. She wasn't going to live that long unless she did something spectacular. The lead Zephyrian was close enough now that she could see the individual facets of his compound eyes, each one tracking her movements with inhuman precision. His mandibles clicked together in what she assumed was amusement. I am Skrixtal, pack leader of the Crimson Claw hunting pack, he announced with ceremonial formality. 73 successful hunts across 12 systems. Your name will be remembered, human, when the hunting songs are sung on our homeworld. Elena stood up slowly, keeping her hands visible but ready. She stepped out from behind the crystalline outcrop, fully exposing herself to the hunting party. The Zephyrians tensed, ready to spring at the first sign of movement, but she remained perfectly still. "Elena Vasquez," she replied, her voice steady and clear. "Captain, Terran Colonial Defense Force, serial number 7749 Delta Omega." Scrixtal's head tilted slightly, his antennae twitching with what might have been curiosity. "You give your name freely, Captain Elena Vasquez. This is unexpected." Most prey attempts to bargain or plead at this point. "I'm not most prey," Elena said simply. The pack leader's mandibles spread wider, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. "Indeed? Then perhaps you will provide the sport we seek. The hunt begins now. Human, you have a 30-second head start, as is traditional. I suggest you use it wisely." Elena looked around at the circle of predators surrounding her, each one poised to begin the chase. The smart move would be to run. Find high ground. Maybe a cave system where she could bottleneck them. Use her smaller size and human agility to her advantage. It's what they expected, what they wanted. Instead, she drew her sidearm and took aim at Scrixtal's center mass. "Why aren't you running, human?" he asked, his voice carrying a note of genuine confusion. Elena's finger found the trigger. Her next words would echo across the galaxy, transmitted by hidden recording devices, and eventually reach every human settlement in known space. They would become a rallying cry, a symbol of human defiance in the face of impossible odds. "Because," she said, her voice cutting through the alien silence like a blade, "humans don't run from bullies." Quote, the first shot took Scrixtal in what passed for his shoulder, spinning him around and sending ichor spraying across the crimson sand. The Zephyrian's roar of pain and rage shattered the desert quiet, and suddenly the hunt was on. But not the kind of hunt the Zephyrians had expected. Elena dove to her left as the pack converged on her position, their claws raking through the air where she'd been standing moments before. She rolled behind another crystalline formation and came up firing. Her shots carefully placed and devastatingly accurate. Each pull of the trigger was calculated, precise, born of years of combat experience and countless hours on the firing range. The second Zephyrian went down with a smoking hole where his left eye cluster had been. The third stumbled, his leg joint shattered by Elena's third shot. These weren't kill shots. Her weapon wasn't powerful enough to punch through their natural armor. But they were slowing them down, making them think twice about their casual approach to this hunt. Scrixtal was back on his feet now, ichor still dripping from his wounded shoulder. His compound eyes blazed with something that might have been respect, mixed with murderous fury. "Clever, human. But you cannot hide forever. We are patient hunters." "Who said anything about hiding?" Elena's voice came from a different position now. She'd used the brief firefight to relocate, putting more distance between herself and the pack. "You want to hunt? Let's hunt." What followed was unlike any hunt the Zephyrians had ever experienced. Instead of running in panic, Elena used the terrain to her advantage, turning the desert into her ally. She knew every shadow, every crevice, every angle that could provide cover or concealment. Her movements were precise and economical, wasting no energy on unnecessary actions. The Zephyrians found themselves constantly wrong-footed. When they expected her to flee, she attacked. When they tried to surround her, she was already gone. Her weapon spoke with deadly accuracy, each shot aimed at joints and soft spots in their armor. She couldn't kill them easily, but she could damn sure hurt them. As the first sun began to set, painting the desert in deeper shades of red, 3 Zephyrians lay motionless on the sand. 2 others limped badly, their hunting effectiveness severely compromised. Elena's ammunition was running low, but her resolve burned brighter than ever. She'd found her rhythm now, the deadly dance of combat that had served her so well in the wars. Every move was calculated, every shot precious. The Zephyrians were learning what humans had known for millennia. Sometimes, the most dangerous prey is the kind that refuses to run. The night was coming, and with it, new possibilities. Elena had survived the first phase of her impossible fight, but the real test was just beginning. In the darkness ahead lay either death or something far more extraordinary. The birth of a legend that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be human. The stars wheeled overhead, cold and distant witnesses to the drama unfolding on the crimson sands below. And Elena Vasquez, daughter of Earth, stood ready to show the universe exactly what humans were capable of when pushed to their limits. The twin moons of Keth 7 cast eerie shadows across the battlefield as Elena pressed herself against the smooth surface of a wind-carved spire. Her breath came in controlled puffs, visible in the rapidly cooling desert air. 7 shots left in her sidearm. 7 Zephyrians still hunting her. The mathematics of survival had improved slightly, but she was still outnumbered and outgunned. The night had transformed the desert into a maze of silver and black, where every shadow could hide death and every glint of moonlight might reveal her position to alien eyes, perfectly adapted for nocturnal hunting. Elena had counted on the darkness to even the odds, but the Zephyrians moved through it like they owned it. Skrixtal's voice echoed across the rocky formations, no longer carrying the casual arrogance of before. There was respect in his tone now. And something else. Wariness. You fight well for prey, human. But the night belongs to us. Our ancestors hunted in darkness when your species was still cowering from shadows in caves. Elena smiled grimly. If only he knew. Humans had been apex predators long before they reached the stars, and darkness had been their ally since the dawn of time. She shifted position silently, her military training taking over completely. Every movement was deliberate, calculated to minimize noise and avoid detection. The wounded Zephyrian she'd shot in the leg earlier was moving more slowly than his packmates, favoring his injured limb. Elena had been tracking him for the past 20 minutes, waiting for the perfect opportunity. In warfare, you targeted the weak links first. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Every enemy removed from the equation increased your chances of survival exponentially. She found her shot in a narrow canyon between 2 towering rock formations. The wounded Zephyrian had separated himself from the pack, perhaps hoping to circle around and catch her from an unexpected angle. It was a sound tactical decision, but it made him vulnerable. Elena's 8th shot took him in the throat, punching through the softer armor plating there. The creature collapsed with barely a sound, his silver blood pooling in the moonlight. 6 left. But her muzzle flash had given away her position, and the remaining hunters converged on the canyon with frightening speed. Elena was already moving, scaling the nearly vertical rock wall, with the desperate agility that came from knowing death was seconds behind her. Her fingers found purchase in tiny cracks and crevices, her military conditioning pushing her beyond normal human limits. Claws scraped against stone below her as the Zephyrians reached the canyon floor. One of them began climbing after her, his natural advantages in reach and strength making him a formidable pursuer. Elena didn't look back. Looking back was a luxury she couldn't afford. She reached a narrow ledge 30 feet up and immediately dove behind cover as energy bolts sizzled past her head. The Zephyrians had stopped playing games now. They'd brought out their own weapons, sleek energy rifles that could punch holes through solid rock. The playful hunt had become a serious military engagement. You begin to understand, human, Skrixtal called out. We were being sporting before, following the old traditions. But you have proven yourself beyond mere prey. You are a worthy enemy. And worthy enemies deserve our full attention. Elena's 9th shot answered him, aimed at the Zephyrian climbing toward her ledge. The bolt caught him in the shoulder, sending him tumbling back into the canyon with a satisfying crash. 5 left, but now they were angry and armed with superior weapons. The energy rifles opened up in earnest, turning her rocky shelter into a storm of flying stone chips and superheated air. Elena kept low, using the terrain as much as possible to deflect and absorb the incoming fire. Her mind raced through possibilities. Tactical options. Ways to turn this from a siege into something she could win. That's when she noticed the smell. It was faint at first, almost masked by the ozone scent of energy weapons and the metallic tang of alien blood. But it was there. A chemical odor that spoke to something deep in her memory. During her tour on the mining world of Kepler 442b, she'd learned to recognize that particular scent. It meant danger of a very specific kind. Explosive gas. Natural pockets of it formed in certain geological conditions, and Keth 7's unique mineral composition made it particularly prone to such formations. The energy weapon's fire was heating the air, creating the perfect conditions for ignition if there was enough gas present. Elena's mind began working furiously. It was insanely dangerous, but it might be her only chance. She needed to get the Zephyrians into position, concentrate them in the right location, and then create a spark at exactly the right moment. She began moving again, not away from the pack this time, but toward a specific formation she'd noticed earlier. It was a narrow defile between two massive stone walls, with several cave openings that almost certainly connected to larger cavern systems below. If her geological training was correct, those caves would be perfect collectors for heavier-than-air gases. The Zephyrians followed, drawn by her movement and the occasional glimpse she allowed them to catch. She was hurting them now. Using their hunter instincts against them, they thought they were pursuing wounded prey, but Elena was leading them exactly where she wanted them to go. Skrixtal was the first to realize something was wrong. His head tilted as he caught the same scent Elena had noticed, his compound eyes scanning the narrow defile with sudden wariness. Brothers, something is not right here. The human leads us into a trap, but it was too late. Elena had reached the position she needed, high up on the canyon wall directly above the cave openings. She could see all 5 remaining Zephyrians spread out below her in the narrow space, their weapons trained upward, but their attention divided between watching for her next move and trying to identify the source of their pack leader's concern. "You're right," Elena called down to them, her voice echoing off the stone walls. "I am leading you into a trap, but not the kind you think." Her 10th shot wasn't aimed at any of the Zephyrians. Instead, she fired directly into the largest cave opening, where the concentration of explosive gas would be highest. The energy bolt struck the rocky wall and created exactly the spark she needed. The explosion was tremendous, a roaring column of flame that turned the narrow defile into a furnace. The concussion knocked Elena flat against the canyon rim, her ears ringing and her vision blurred. Below, she could hear the screams of the Zephyrians caught in the blast. When the smoke and dust cleared, the canyon floor was transformed. Fallen rocks had created a chaotic landscape of debris and destruction. 3 of the Zephyrians were motionless beneath tons of stone. A 4th was crawling slowly toward the canyon mouth, his legs clearly broken but his determination unshaken. Skrixtal alone remained fully functional, though his silver carapace was scorched and cracked from the explosion. He stood among the ruins of his pack, looking up at Elena with what she could only interpret as a mixture of rage and grudging admiration. "Clever," he said, his voice hoarse from inhaling superheated air. "Very clever indeed. You use our own aggression against us, turn our strength into weakness. This is why your species survives where others fail." Elena climbed down from her perch, keeping her weapon trained on the pack leader. 2 shots left. 1 functioning enemy, plus the wounded one who was still trying to crawl away. The odds had finally shifted in her favor. But she wasn't celebrating yet. Skrixtal was clearly the deadliest of his pack, and wounded Zephyrians were known to be even more dangerous than healthy ones. "Your pack is dead," Elena said simply. "You can call off this hunt and leave. I have no quarrel with your people beyond this moment." Skrixtal's mandibles clicked together in what might have been laughter. "You misunderstand the nature of what has occurred here, human. This was never merely a hunt. It was a test, and you have passed it in ways that will echo across the galaxy." He reached for something at his belt, and Elena's finger tightened on her trigger. But instead of a weapon, he produced a small, crystalline device that began to glow with soft blue light. "I have been recording this encounter since it began," Skrixtal explained. "Not just for the hunting songs, but for the Galactic Council. They wanted to understand what makes humans so dangerous, why your species has claimed so much territory so quickly, despite your physical limitations. Now they will know." The device projected a 3-dimensional image into the air between them. Elena herself, standing over the bodies of fallen Zephyrians with her weapons steady and her expression utterly determined. It was a powerful image, one that spoke to something fundamental about human nature. "You have shown them that humans do not run," Scrixtel continued. "You stand and fight, even when victory seems impossible. You turn disadvantage into advantage, weakness into strength. You are apex predators not because of your claws or your fangs, but because of your minds." Elena kept her weapon trained on him, but something had changed in the alien's posture. The predatory tension was gone, replaced by something that resembled respect. "The hunt is over, Captain Elena Vasquez," Scrixtel declared formally. "You have earned something that few beings in the galaxy can claim: the acknowledgement of the Zephyrian hunting packs. From this moment forward, you and your ship are under our protection. Any who hunt humans for sport will answer to the Crimson Claw Pack, and to me, personally." The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. The Zephyrians were one of the most feared species in the galaxy, and their protection was worth more than entire fleets of warships. But more than that, word of this encounter would spread. Other species would learn what had happened here, and they would understand that humans were not prey to be hunted for sport. As the twin moons continued their journey across the star-filled sky, Elena Vasquez stood among the ruins of what had been meant to be her execution ground. She had faced the galaxy's most dangerous predators and emerged victorious not through superior firepower or technology, but through the sheer refusal to accept defeat. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson about humanity, and Elena Vasquez had become the teacher. 3 months after the encounter on Keth 7, Elena Vasquez stood before the assembled delegates of the Galactic Council on the magnificent station orbiting Centauri Prime. The crystalline amphitheater stretched out before her in concentric rings, each tier representing different species from across known space. The sight should have been intimidating. Thousands of alien beings, many of whom had considered humanity little more than an upstart species barely worthy of notice. Instead, Elena felt a quiet confidence that came from knowing exactly who she was and what she represented. The recording crystal from Scrixtal's device had done more than document a single combat encounter. It had fundamentally altered the political landscape of the galaxy. The image of a lone human woman standing victorious over the bodies of Zephyrian hunters had spread through every communication network, every trade route, every diplomatic channel. Within weeks, it had become the most transmitted piece of media in galactic history. But it wasn't just the victory that had captured the galaxy's attention. It was the question that Scrixtel had asked, the words that had become a rallying cry for humanity, and a warning to those who would prey upon them. "Why aren't you running, human?" The answer had shattered assumptions that had persisted for centuries. Elena's gaze swept across the assembled delegates, noting the subtle shifts in posture and attention that spoke of a species' true intentions. The Calorians sat stiffly in their environmental suits, their crystalline forms refracting the amphitheater's light into prismatic rainbows. They had been among humanity's most vocal opponents, arguing that the newer species should remain in the Outer Rim territories. Now they watched her with what could only be described as wary respect. The hegemony representatives were even more interesting. The insectoid Vorthak had long considered themselves the galaxy's premier military power, their hive mind tactics and biotechnology making them nearly unbeatable in conventional warfare. But the recording had shown them something they'd never seen before. A single individual defeating superior numbers through pure tactical brilliance and unbreakable will. Their compound eyes tracked Elena's every movement with the intensity of predators recognizing a rival apex species. At the center of the amphitheater, Chancellor Morteth of the Galactic Council called for order. The ancient Eternarch's mental projections carried the weight of 3,000 years of diplomatic experience, and his telepathic voice resonated in every mind present. "We gather today to address the situation that has arisen regarding the species known as humanity," the Chancellor began, his thoughts colored with careful neutrality. The recording provided by pack leader Scrixtal of the Zephyrian hunting clans has raised significant questions about our previous assessments of human capabilities and intentions. Elena stepped forward to the speaker's platform, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. She wore her dress uniform of the Terran Colonial Defense Force, every ribbon and insignia telling the story of humanity's struggles among the stars. But the most important story was written in her bearing, The straight spine, the steady gaze, the complete absence of deference that might have been expected from a representative of a lesser species. "Honored delegates," Elena began, her voice carrying easily through the amphitheater's acoustics. "I stand before you, not as a conqueror or a supplicant, but as a messenger. The message is simple. Humanity has arrived among the stars, not to be ruled or to rule, but to take our place as equals in the galactic community." A ripple of reaction ran through the assembled delegates. Some translated her words as arrogance, others as simple confidence. The distinction would prove crucial in the hours to come. Ambassador Veltar of the Calorian Collective rose from his seat, his crystalline form casting fractured light across the nearby sections. "Captain Vasquez, while your victory over the Zephyrian hunting pack was impressive, surely you cannot believe that a single combat encounter grants your species any special status. The galaxy is governed by law, by treaty, by the accumulated wisdom of civilizations far older than your own." Elena's smile was slight but unmistakable. "Ambassador Veltar, with respect, the galaxy is governed by strength. Treaties and laws are only as powerful as the will to enforce them. For too long, humanity has been seen as weak because we were new, because we lacked the technology and territorial holdings of older species. What happened on Keth 7 wasn't about technology or territory, it was about something far more fundamental." She activated the projection system with a gesture, and the now famous recording began to play above the amphitheater. Every delegate had seen it before, but watching it again in this context gave it new weight. The image of Elena facing down the Zephyrian pack filled the space, her words echoing with crystalline clarity. "Because humans don't run from bullies." This recording has traveled to every human colony, every ship, every outpost in our territory, Elena continued as the projection played. "But it's also reached beyond human space. I have reports from across the galaxy. Species that had been paying tribute to stronger neighbors have stopped their payments. Pirates who preyed on merchant vessels have found their targets fighting back with unexpected ferocity. The Corvan slave markets have seen 3 major uprisings in the past month alone." The hegemony delegate, Supreme Bioengineer Zethkri, spoke through his translator device. "Are you claiming responsibility for galactic unrest?" "Human? I'm claiming responsibility for nothing more than being human," Elena replied evenly. "What others choose to do with that example is their decision. But I will say this. The recording shows more than just a military encounter. It shows a choice. When faced with overwhelming odds, when survival seemed impossible, I chose to stand and fight rather than run and hide. That choice is available to every sentient being in this galaxy." Chancellor Morteth's mental presence grew more focused. "And what of the consequences of this choice? The established order has maintained peace for over a millennium. Your example threatens to destabilize relationships that have existed longer than your species has been spacefaring." Elena turned to face the Chancellor directly, meeting his ancient gaze without flinching. "Respectfully, Chancellor, a peace built on the fear of the weak is not peace at all. It's merely delayed conflict. The recording from Keth 7 has shown the galaxy something that was always true. That strength comes not from size or technology or age, but from the willingness to stand for what matters when it would be easier to surrender." She gestured to the still-playing recording, where her image stood over the fallen Zephyrians. "Every species in this chamber became spacefaring because they refused to accept limitations. They reached for the stars because something inside them said no to being bound by gravity and atmosphere and the safety of their homeworld. That same spirit, that refusal to accept impossible odds, is what makes humans dangerous to those who would oppress others." The Zephyrian delegation had remained silent throughout the proceedings, but now Skrixtal himself rose from his position. His scarred carapace gleamed under the amphitheater lights as he spoke in perfect galactic standard. "The human speaks truth," he declared, his voice carrying the authority of a master predator. "My people have hunted across the galaxy for generations. We have faced every species represented in this chamber, tested their will, measured their courage. Most run, Some fight briefly before yielding. A precious few stand their ground. Regardless of odds, his compound eyes focused on Elena with unmistakable respect. Humans do not run. They adapt. They improvise. They turn disadvantage into opportunity with a creativity that borders on the impossible. Captain Vasquez defeated my hunting pack not because she was stronger or better armed, but because she refused to accept defeat as an option. The pack leader's words carried tremendous weight. The Zephyrians were feared across the galaxy not just for their hunting prowess, but for their absolute honesty. They had no political agenda, no territorial ambitions beyond their traditional hunting grounds. When a Zephyrian spoke of another species' capabilities, that assessment was accepted as objective truth. Ambassador Veltar shifted uncomfortably in his crystalline form. Even accepting the validity of these observations, the question remains, what does humanity want? What are your species' intentions regarding the established galactic order? Elena had been waiting for this question. It was the heart of why she was here, the real reason the Council had agreed to this session. Fear. They were afraid of humanity not because of what humans had done, but because of what they might do. Our intentions are simple, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the amphitheater. We want the same thing every species wants. The right to exist, to grow, to explore, to build a future for our children. We want to trade with those who offer fair terms, defend ourselves against those who would harm us, and stand as allies to those who share our values. She paused, letting the words settle before delivering the crucial point. But we will not be bullied. We will not be prey. We will not accept restrictions placed upon us simply because older species find our growth uncomfortable. The galaxy is vast enough for all of us, but only if we all accept that strength comes from cooperation, not domination. The silence that followed was profound. Elena could feel the weight of thousands of minds processing her words, calculating implications, reassessing long-held assumptions about humanity's place in the galactic order. Chancellor Morteth was the first to speak, his mental voice carrying notes of something that might have been amusement. Captain Vasquez, your words carry the ring of an ultimatum, disguised as diplomacy. No ultimatum, Elena replied calmly, simply a statement of fact. Humanity has tried to work within the existing systems. We've followed the protocols, respected the boundaries, accepted the limitations placed upon newer species. But Keth 7 has changed everything. The galaxy now knows what happens when humans are pushed too far. We'd prefer cooperation to conflict, but we're prepared for either. The recording finally ended, leaving the amphitheater in contemplative silence. Elena's image froze at the moment of victory, standing tall among the ruins of her enemies. Her expression determined but not cruel. It was a powerful symbol. Humanity unbowed, unbroken, unwilling to yield. Over the following hours, the delegates would debate, negotiate, and ultimately reshape the fundamental structure of galactic civilization. New treaties would be written, territorial boundaries redrawn, and the balance of power permanently altered. The human accords would become the most significant diplomatic achievement in galactic history. But all of that lay in the future. For now, Elena Vasquez stood before the assembled powers of the galaxy as the living embodiment of humanity's refusal to be anything less than free. The girl from Earth who had crashed on a distant desert world had become something more than herself. She had become proof that sometimes, when the impossible stands in your way, the only reasonable response is to stand your ground and fight. The stars had witnessed the birth of something new, humanity ascendant, not through conquest but through the simple, revolutionary act of refusing to run. And in the end, that had made all the difference.